Now, when the ChatGPT API came out, we built a fully functional ChatGPT client, which pretty much mimics the official web client. But there's always more things that you can do. There's always things that you can improve on. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you a fully functional ChatGPT voice assistant that works amazingly well. And I actually prefer this over the previous app that we built. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps that I'm going to be demonstrating and or building in today's video are going to be available through my Patreon page, which you're going to see a link to it in the description below. And so here's the app that we built in one of the previous videos. It's a fully functional ChatGPT chat app where you can simply create a new chat here. You can ask it something such as, what is the capital of Mexico? And it's going to give you a response. And here's the response. You can have a follow-up question. What is the second largest city? Okay, and it gives you a follow-up answer. And so this works amazingly well because we are sending the request using the official API, plus we are keeping context of the previous responses on the previous question. And so here's a quick diagram. And so we have the initial message, and then we're sending a request, we get a response, then maybe we have a second message. And meanwhile, all this time, we are keeping track of the previous responses as well as all the messages, because with each subsequent message, we need to send the previous questions and answers as well. And here's the new and improved app. Now, before I show you how I build this in Flutterflow, let me show you a proof of concept app in an iPhone simulator. Now, here's the new app running in an iPhone 14 Pro Max simulator. And I actually added a new screen here called the ChatGPT Assistant, and you can actually speak to it now. So for instance, let's say I want to ask it a question. What is the capital of Spain? And as you can see, as I was saying it, it's actually typing the response in real time, which is a really, really nice touch. And of course, we got the response right here. And I can also ask it another question. What is the capital of the United States? Okay, and here's the answer. The capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. Now, in addition to this assistant page, we also have another really, really nice enhancement. So if we go to this chats page right here, we can start a new chat as before. Now we can do something extra. We can input the question by merely speaking. So as an example, I can just click on this. What is the capital of Costa Rica? Okay, and there you have it. And there's the response. What is the capital of Costa Rica right there? And as before, we can actually send this request and have it answer it for us. Okay, this is a valid request. And here's the response right here. Now we can follow up with another question. Which countries does Costa Rica border? Okay, and we can send that question and we get a response. Costa Rica is bordered by two countries, Nicaragua to the north, Panama to the south. And obviously you can type if you want, if you just want to type and say like, what is the capital of Panama? You can do that as well. You don't have to speak to it if that's not what you want to do. The capital of Panama is Panama City. Or you can get back to speaking to it. What is the capital of Chile? And there you have it. And obviously you can go back, you can start a new thread, you can go back to the front page and you can speak to it. You can say something like, what is 1 plus 1? Okay, so there you have it. As an AI language model, I believe that 1 plus 1 equals to 2. So I believe this is a really, really nice improvement, but wait until you get to the best part. This is not even the best part. All right, so now that we've seen the app live inside a simulator, let's go back inside the Flutterflow and let me show you exactly step by step how you can build a similar app as well. All right, so here we are back inside of Flutterflow. And the first thing that I want to cover is our database, the schemas, because that is where we're going to be storing various pieces of information to make it all work together. So if you head into our Firestore schema, we have the familiar schema from the app that I did before, right? So we have the users here, and then we have chats that each chat is tied to the user. And then for each chat, we also have a sub collection of messages. But this time I added an assistant collection here. And these are the fields that we have in this assistant collection. Now, it's important to know that for each user, you're only going to have one document, one of these documents there. And so we have the message, which is the initial message that we're sending. We have the UID. I also have a done field, and this is when the system tells us that it finished listening to us and now it's ready to process the data. And I'm going to show you all of that in just a little bit. And here we have the response. This is the response that we're getting from an API. Now, in order to make speech to text functioning inside of Flutterflow, I needed to find another library that would allow us to do it. And so here's the library. They have a ton of documentation, a ton of examples. You can learn all about it. But fortunately, you don't need to do that because I went ahead and I created a custom action that does exactly what you need to do. And this is kind of all this action is. It's just a few statements. And what we're doing inside this action is, well, first of all, we are importing this library here, right? I have this dependency here, which is the same when it comes to widgets, custom widgets. You also need a dependency. And so I'm including the imports here. And then inside of this custom action, what we're doing is we're passing the document reference of that assistant document that we're going to be working with, because that document is the interface to speech to text. Because when we are speaking, this module here, this custom action, is actually taking the voice, converting it into text, and then setting the fields in that assistant document directly. That way we have access to the resulting text. Okay, and so what we're doing here is we are creating the speech to text here, we're initializing, and then we're creating a status listener. And the status listener lets us know when it finished listening, because at some point it needs to finish. And what we're doing is we're setting done to the status, whether it's true or false, inside of our assistant document. And then this is the heart of this custom action here, and this listening part. And here we have a pause, and we're setting this pause for 3 seconds. And what this means is that when we are talking to it, we're going to have a pause. Okay, we may pause to think, and then we're going to continue. But we may also pause because we're done. And so I'm saying 3 seconds means that stop listening. Okay, if you make longer pauses when you're talking, you can increase this. You can say, pause 10 seconds, which means that once you pause for 10 seconds, it's going to stop listening. For me, 3 seconds works really, really well. And then we have this final unresolved, and this is executed when it's done, right? When we pause for 3 seconds, it finished. It's now ready to transcribe and kind of give us the result. And so what we're doing here is we're updating the message field in that assistant document, but I'm also setting the state as well. State is also really, really good because it allows us to display different parts really, really easily. And so I have this assistant request state field here, okay, and this is the response here as well, and I'm setting it to this result recognize word. And so in a nutshell, all I'm doing is I'm setting a pause for 3 seconds. When we pause for longer than 3 seconds, it finishes. And the reason we need it to finish after X amount of seconds has to do with the actions. So if we click on this button and we click on the actions, we have 4 actions. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm executing this action, right? And the beautiful thing about making that custom speech to text code as a custom action instead of a custom widget or a custom function is that you can use it right inside of actions. So even though I really haven't used custom actions that much before, in this case is the perfect candidate. And so we are creating a custom action here, and we're saying we're doing a speech to text, and we are passing the argument of that assistant docref, okay? And then we're waiting 10 seconds. We just have a delay to make sure it calculates everything. And once it's done, we have a backend call. This is our ChatGPT backend call, and we are passing the message that was transcribed so that it can have that API call and get back the result from ChatGPT. Okay, so this is our ChatGPT API. We can edit this API. This is kind of what this API looks like. I have my key. Do not use this key. It's not going to work. You have to go and create your own key. But once you've done that, you can simply go back here. And what we're doing is we're checking that the API call succeed or not. If it did, then we want to update the response in our document, in that assistant document. And that's pretty much it. That's all it needs to do. Now, what's interesting about this is we have this message, right? This message is going to be dynamically displayed by the message in that assistant document. So as you're speaking to it, remember in that custom action, we are taking in those transcribed words and we are assigning them to this Firebase Firestore document. And this is why it's tied here. And it's showing this response. And this response here is tied to assistant document response. That's all it's really doing. Okay, so as you're speaking, it's writing to Firestore database and it's automatically displaying it here. And then once we get the response, it's going to display it here. It's all going to be done real time, dynamic. We don't have to refresh anything. Very, very nice and easy. Now, if you go to the second page, this is the chat messages page. We have this functionality here as well. And so we have this icon button, and when you click on it, it has an action. We're going to open it up. And the first thing that we need to do is we're going to clear all the states, okay? Because we may have used this functionality from the assistant page and we don't want to display the old data. And so what I'm doing here is I'm clearing all the states. I'm clearing our local state. I'm clearing the DB field. And then I'm executing this action here. Okay, so I'm passing the reference to that assistant document. We're going to wait a little bit for it to calculate and do everything it needs to do. And then we are setting the form field to the local state that we set in our custom action. Okay, we can set the form field from here, which is really, really handy. And so it says here, set form field. We can come in here and we're using app state here to set the form field. And as a result, we have this functionality that enables us to control this field here, all inside of this custom action. And that way you can type here if you want, you can send it here, or you can talk to it if you want, and it's going to reflect here. I'd say that's awesome functionality because you have options and flexibility. Now, there's one important thing you guys need to understand. When you are previewing the apps inside of Flutterflow, so if you come over here and you either create a test environment or run it directly, it's going to run it as though it's running Flutter on desktop. And remember, Flutter is multi-platform, right? Flutter is platform agnostic. It can run on iOS, Android, web, or desktop. The thing about the library that we're using, that library doesn't really work with desktop apps that well. It's mainly designed for mobile. And so after you have this app, what you want to do, guys, is you want to download this code. Essentially, you're downloading the generated Flutter app, right? Which is kind of what Flutterflow does. It generates Flutter code. You're going to generate your Flutterflow app. And then what you need to do is you need to load it in an editor of choice. So I'm using Visual Studio Code here, which is a really, really nice editor. It's a nice IDE, and that is something that I recommend. Once you do that, you can simply run this app in a simulator of choice. So if I click here, I have various simulators. I can run it as a web app. I can run it inside of an iPhone 14 Pro Max simulator. I can also run it in a Pixel. You know, I have a Pixel 6 Pro simulator as well. So I have lots and lots of options. And remember, you're going to be building mobile apps anyway. And so this is something you will have to do at some point. You can't just build an app and run it off Flutterflow and decide, okay, it's ready to go. No, you always have to test it inside of a simulator. And when you test it inside of a simulator, you're going to see it exactly how, you know, it's going to run in a real device, meaning that you're going to see it exactly how your prospective customers, your users are going to be experiencing this app. And so this is very, very important. It's especially important if you're using some third-party libraries, such as speech to text or pretty much anything else. And by the way, if you're a member of my Patreon, not only will you get access to the actual Flutterflow app where you can view and or clone it, but you'll also get access to the actual generated code. And that way you can easily load this app inside of Visual Studio Code and run it inside of a simulator in like 5 minutes. And so once you have this app running inside of a simulator, you can test everything out. You can make sure everything is running. And if you like what you see, you can continue developing it, or you can launch it and give it to your end users. And obviously there's many things that you can do with this app. You can leave it as is, you can modify it, you can change things around. And the best part, what is the best part? Well, the best part is that if we come over here to our custom actions, you can take this custom action and you can use it in any app that you want. You don't need to use it in this ChatGPT app. You can use it in pretty much any app where you desire speech to text functionality. And so that, in my opinion, is an amazing bonus. You can take this custom action and use it in all of your apps to do amazing speech to text functionality for your users. And that is pretty much how the app is built. Now, you gotta admit that is a nice upgrade over the previous version because we're giving users options. And plus, when you're thinking about AI assistants, you're mostly imagining AI assistants that you can talk to instead of apps where you can only type to. Now, if you are looking to build your own AI assistant, maybe you want to build something that I have here or something different, or maybe you are looking to implement speech to text functionality in the app that you have right now, or maybe a future app. Maybe this is going to be an app that has nothing to do with AI or has nothing to do with being an assistant. Then you definitely want to join my Patreon community, because when you join our Patreon community, not only will you get access to this app, which means you can view and or clone, plus as an extra bonus, you'll get access to the generated Flutter code, which means you can take it and run it on your computer right now. But it's not only that. When you become a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to all the Flutter Flow apps that I built on this channel, plus some of the other apps that I built with other no-code builders. But that's not all. You also get access to extra content such as Q&As, live streams, behind-the-scenes content, as well as our Patreon-supported exclusive masterclass series where I sit down and do a deep dive based on the topics that the audience is interested in. So the audience votes on a specific topic. I sit down and I create a deep dive on that topic exclusively for our Patreon community. Plus, when you join our Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work, and that is highly appreciated. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video and you're looking for more videos when it comes to building ChatGPT apps, AI assistants, and stuff like that, make sure you watch the video that's showing up in the corner of your screen right now. That video is going to make a lot of these concepts crystal clear.